Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and this is our Season 3 draft recap for the United Battle Championship, aka the UBC. We are returning to the UBC as the Season 2 champions. We are the Baltimore Oriolus, and we had a really fun squad last season that was able to take it all the way. We did just recently have this draft, and I wanted to make a quick video discussing the team. There's a couple of Pokemon on here that I have used before. Actually, there's more Pokemon that I have used than I haven't, and I'm really excited to be bringing all these different mons together. I mentioned this in my interview video with Verd that I kind of envisioned this being an all-star team of sorts for Baltimore Oriolus of seasons past. So we'll just quickly talk about the draft, then I'll get right into it. We have 14 teams, 6 of them, including myself, are returning, and 8 teams are new. We ended up with the 9th overall pick, and that had me a little bit worried because I thought we were going to get sniped very early on, but we were very fortunate to get basically every mon that we wanted. And without further ado, let's just hop right on into it and start off with Bell, the Mega Lopunny. My whole strategy really revolved around getting this Lopunny. I think it's the best Mega in counter team format, and I think a lot of people also share this opinion. Obviously, its stats are amazing, really great attack. It's a nice 371 with the Jolly Nature, and it's ridiculously fast. Hits base 405, one of the fastest Megas besides things like Aerodactyl and Alakazam and Sceptile and things like that. Excuse me. So this is going to be... It's nice because this is even more versatile than the Sceptile that I had last season. Sceptile obviously was a little faster and had a little bit more power off the bat, but Lopunny has completely unresisted stab coverage. It has Fake Out and Quick Attack for some good priority. It's got Power Up Punch, it's got Substitute, it's got Heal Bell, it's got Healing Wish, it's got Baton Pass, it's got everything. So we can use this as a support mon a little bit more if we need. We can use this as a setup sweeper if we want. We got priority on it. So just, it's so good. It's so dang good. And that's really all there is to say about it. I don't want to give away too many strats, but this is a Pokemon that you can expect to see pretty frequently. Next up, we've got our Disco Biscuit, the Amoonguss. I think everybody knows what Amoonguss does. It's a fantastic pivot, and the best move that it can go for most turns is Spore, 100% accuracy Sleep. It's a great way to cripple teams. It's also a really good water resist, fighting resist, things like that. It's just really awesome. Regenerator gives it really good longevity, and it gets decent moves. You know, obviously it gets stab options with like Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb and stuff like that. Energy Ball, for some reason you need a little bit more power. But Clear Smog is a really nice support move. Foul Play is excellent. You know, stuff like that. Stun Spore if you need. Toxic. You know, get 100% accurate Toxic since we are Poison type. So I really wanted a Amoonguss. I actually took it with my 2nd round pick. As you can see, I didn't say this at the beginning, but I am going to go through these mons in the order in which I picked them. But I knew Amoonguss was going to be really crucial to my strategy, and that'll become especially evident later on when you see my 2nd round picks. I also knew that I wanted to get Leonardo with the Blastoise. Now, the last time I had Leonardo on my team... Well, actually, I've had Leonardo on my team 2 other times. I have it in a Showdown League that I do with some friends that I don't post to YouTube, but I have regular Blastoise, and then obviously I also had a Mega Blastoise in the Orange League Season 2. I think that regular Blastoise is the best Rapid Spinner in Counter League format. I think it's better than Starmie. I think it's better than Excadrill. Starmie and Excadrill are better mons overall because they actually have an offensive presence. But in terms of getting reliable Rapid Spin off, I think Blastoise is the best because it's just so fat. It takes basically every hit. I've run this thing defensive with Sleep Talk. I've run it Assault Vest with Mirror Coat. I've done all sorts of really great things with this. It's just so reliable. It's so sturdy. And, you know, even without the Mega Launcher boost, excuse me, it gets really nice offensive coverage. It's not going to hit as hard as I mentioned, but, you know, just Scald by itself, you know, is the best move in the game. So it's hard to complain about having a Pokemon with Scald. You know, and you can even run physical if you need. It's got a decent attack stat, and it's got decent physical moves. You know, Aqua Jet, Aqua Tail, Waterfall if you don't like to miss. You know, Double Edge, Brick Break. Look at all these things. Dragon Tail. Dragon Tail is a really clutch, really clutch move. So yeah, this is our Leonardo, the Blastoise. Now, the next pick I really was hoping to get Salamence, but it got sniped like 3 picks before me, which made me really sad. But we have an opportunity to get another Dragon Dancer later in this draft. But I wanted another Pokemon that had really great versatility. So we went with Mjolnir, the Zapdos. This thing is really amazing, and I don't think it's any surprise to most people who are familiar with Pokemon and with Counter League format. But for this season, Zapdos ended up being a Tier 2 Mon instead of a Tier 1. So I knew that this was a really high value pick here, because it can be defensive on either side. It's got really decent stats, nice HP stat, which really helps things out. Very good special attack stat, very good speed tier, especially for a defensive Pokemon. So most Zapdoses that you see, I think, are defensive, but we have the ability to run this offensive. And a physically attacking set isn't really fantastic, but it is possible with things like Drill Peck and stuff like that. I think it's under the... Where's Drill Peck? There it is. 80 base power. You know, that's not even bad. Can't complain. You know, maybe we would like Brave Bird better, but, you know, we don't take recoil out here, so... this is going to be, like, the glue for most teams that I bring each week. Just if I'm missing a certain role on my team, this can fill it. And obviously, too, it gets really great support moves like Defog and Baton Pass, Volt Switch, Roost, everything. It gets some very decent coverage options as well. So that's going to be Mjolnir the Zapdos. Next up, we've got Emma Watson, the Shiny Gardevoir. You know, so I feel like I've really underestimated Gardevoir in the past. You know, the Mega is the one that really gets all the attention because it's so dang powerful. But regular Gardevoir is powerful on her own. But even more than that, Gardevoir gets like some of the best support moves in the entire game. It gets Destiny Bond, and it gets Healing Wish, and it gets Memento, and it gets Taunt, and it gets Trick, and it gets Will-O-Wisp. So it's unbelievable the number of things that this is going to be able to do for my team. You know, and it's got another really nice special attack stat of 125. It's got Wish, you know, for Wish passing. It can be a good specially defensive wall. It's a really good Choice Scarf user. It's just all around really versatile, and it's only a Tier 3. So I knew that I had to get this. I also knew that in round 5 there was a run on Fairy types, and if I waited any longer to try and grab a Fairy type, I was going to be pretty disappointed. I really wanted Florges, but that had gotten sniped as well. Florges doesn't have all the same support moves that Gardevoir has, but it does have Synthesis for reliable recovery, and it's just a tiny bit bulkier. So I'm not disappointed to have Gardevoir. The thing that you'll see later on is I'm going to have kind of a lot of Psychic types, which I generally like to avoid. But, you know, it's the Fairy type also helps counter that out. So our Dark weakness isn't all that awful. We only have 2 mons that are actually weak to it. We just don't have very many resistances besides Mega Lopunny. Next up, we've got Clostridium, the Reuniclus. If you're not familiar with what Clostridium is, it's a strand of bacteria, or a strain of bacteria that is used in a lot of genetically modified processes, and it's also responsible for the botulinum toxin, aka Botox, for when you stick it into your face when you get old to remove those wrinkles. So anyway, since this is kind of like this is the multiplying Pokemon, Reuniclus, so I thought it was appropriate to name it after a bacteria. Reuniclus is Tier 2 this season after being Tier 3 last season, and it was actually the MVP of UBC Season 2, and so I knew I had to get it. It's so bulky. It's unbelievable. This HP stat obviously is off the charts. Fully invested, it hits 424. That's really nice. And you can, you know, if you fully invest the defense into it, it is a really nice physical wall. And obviously it's got a nice special defense stat as well. And it's got 2 really great abilities. Magic Guard is the ability that you see most of the time. because it makes it immune to toxic and burn and to leech seed and everything like that. So you can set up with it relatively, not freely, but without fear of, being whittled down by passive damage. And the thing that I'm really looking forward to is Regenerator. So we can get a little bit of a Regenerator core with our Amoonguss here. And, it's just a little bit less expected, I suppose. John from the GPA has done a really good job of showcasing how good Regenerator Reuniclus is. So maybe I can get a little bit of that magic in a bottle. I guess I don't think that's really the expression. I guess lightning in the bottle is the expression. But that's not the point. The point is that Reuniclus is really good defensively. And we haven't even talked about how good it is offensively. It's another 125 special attack Pokemon with really great move pool: Psychic, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, Energy Ball, Signal Beam, everything like that. It's very slow, of course, but you can easily mitigate that with Trick Room. And this thing can just sweep teams on its own if it gets up one Trick Room and you give it a Life Orb, which is also negated by Magic Guard, so that's really nice. I also am really happy that I grabbed this because it's one of the best counters to Mega Lopunny in the format, so nobody can now use this against me. So that's something that's going to be really great. Alright, let's get into round 2 here. We are starting off with Bahamut, the Haxorus. I bet that this name is highly contested in terms of how you pronounce it, but that's how we're going to go with it. It's going to be a black shiny Haxorus because doesn't that just look amazing? Shiny Haxorus is one of my favorites. This thing, we're talking about attacking stats here and how amazing 125 is. You know what attack stat Haxorus has? Has 147. Like, holy crap. This is uninvested. This is equal to the attack stat of like a fully invested Jolly base 100 Pokemon. So like Jirachi and Mew and stuff like that, they hit 299 fully invested with a neutral nature, of course. So that's freaking crazy. That is wild. It's got more attack than Lopunny, but it has the ability to hold an item such as a Life Orb or a Choice Band, and it's just going to hit unbelievably hard. And, Mold Breaker, its main ability, is one of the best abilities in the game because it breaks through Sturdy, it breaks through Marvel Scale, it breaks through Levitate. There's just, a lot of Pokemon that you might otherwise use to try and counter this thing. It doesn't work. And it gets really nice coverage. Aqua Tail, Dragon Claw, Earthquake, Low Kick, Night Slash, Poison Jab. This is a huge one right here. Being able to hit fairies for super effective damage is excellent. And, the Earthquake is nice as well, because now those Steel types don't wall us. And hey, you've got a Levitating Steel type. Well, I think I'm the only one in the league with a Levitating Steel type. But you have a Levitating Steel type, or a Levitating Pokemon in general, we snipe you with Earthquake. And so, most people fear this thing to be a Dragon Dance Pokemon, and I do definitely anticipate bringing that this season. But I think something like 4 attacks Haxorus is probably pretty underrated. And just because, when you bring a Haxorus in, you have to respond to it. And just, kind of bluffing the Dragon Dance, but having the extra coverage move, people are like, oh, well, I can counter a Haxorus if he doesn't bring this coverage move. But then if you just bring all coverage, I think you could surprise some people. So that's Bahamut. Next up, we've got a new face, but a familiar face. We have Gilthunder, the Sneasel, returning from PMC D-League. Sneasel's doing some nice work so far this season in the D-League, and I was really happy to catch him late in this draft. I was thinking about some other Pursuit Trappers like Houndoom and Spirit Tomb that are kind of budget. Like, obviously, we could go with some of the premier Pursuit Trappers like Bisharp and Scizor and Weavile and stuff like that, but Sneasel's going to do the job just fine. And it's my second fastest Pokemon behind Lopunny. So we've got a base 135 Pokemon, a base 115 Pokemon, base 100 Pokemon with, Zapdos, base 97 with Haxorus, base 80 with Gardevoir, and the upcoming Stoutland that you'll see. So we've got some really good speed on our team, to be honest. We've had some good speed in the past, but nothing quite as well-rounded as this. So I'm really excited. This thing doesn't have, necessarily great utility moves, but the fact that it gets knockoff, which is the second best move in the game. Gets Pursuit to take care of pesky psychic types that Lopunny doesn't appreciate, and it gets really nice priority with Ice Shard. And basically, that's everything you need it to do, and it gets good coverage with Brick Break, Low Kick, Poison Jab. I think it gets like Aerial Ace as well. Yep, Aerial Ace, X Scissor. You know, it even gets Taunt, it gets Swords Dance, so there's a lot that Sneasel can do. People, you know, it's a tier 5, so people might have a tendency to overlook it. But, you know, other than being a little bit weaker than Weavile, you know, it's gonna do pretty good if you give it a Life Orb and you give it a Choice Band or something. So it's gonna be pretty awesome. Now, up to this point, we've taken our Mega Pokemon, 3 Tier 3 Pokemon, 3 Tier 2 Pokemon, but nothing in Tier 1. And I knew that if I waited this long that I would be able to get this Pokemon. I really doubted that anybody was going to draft it, and that Pokemon is Hippowdon. Bringing back Wimaway from the Orange League, Hippowdon is a tank, and that should come as no surprise to anybody. Hippowdon can take physical and special hits. You know, the pure ground typing is so good. So good. Yes, it's weak to grass and water and ice and stuff like that. But, you know, even a super effective Hidden Power Ice from like an electric type such as Raikou or something like that, it's not even going to do 50%. So it's freaking good. It's got Stealth Rock. It has Slack Off. It has Roar, Whirlwind, Toxic. Edgequake is a really powerful combination. It gets all the Fang moves. So it gets like Fire Fang, Ice Fang. I guess it doesn't get Thunder Fang. But that's fine. I mean, the important ones that you want to see are Fire Fang and Ice Fang. So that way you're not completely walled by stuff like Scizor or potentially Lando T. Things like that. Iron Head's a nice move if you need to take on a fairy or anything like that. So this thing is just awesome. And this was, even though this was one of the last mons that I took, my whole draft plan was really based around getting Lopunny plus Hippowdon plus the last Pokemon that I have in this draft, Stoutland. Because one, normal spam is really freaking good in Counter League. Because, you know, rock types are basically non-existent. And there's only so many good steel types. And yes, Ghost is normally a counter to normal Pokemon, but not the combination of Lopunny and Stoutland, which both have Scrappy as an ability. And then on top of that, you know, Stoutland gets things like Crunch, which allows it to hit Ghost types very, very hard. And then with those Pokemon in mind, I looked at the sand teams that are really popular in OU, and they always have a grass type regenerator in order to counter water types. So like Amoonguss and Tangrowth are really popular. Sometimes you see Tornadus T as like a bulky Pokemon that can take hits from stuff like Keldeo and also has regenerator. We didn't end up getting Tornadus, obviously, but we did get the Amoonguss. We have Zapdos, which isn't really a Keldeo counter, but it is a flying type, so we can counter opposing ground types fairly well. And we've got a good water type of our own in Blastoise. It's not as offensive as some water types you see on sand teams, such as Keldeo. We did get a Pursuit Trapper. A lot of times you see something like Tyranitar on sand teams, obviously because it's a really fantastic sand setter. We almost went with Tyranitar, but I wanted the ground type of Hippowdon to be an electric resist, to be a quasi flying resist, excuse me, and so on and so forth. And I knew that we could get something like Sneasel on the cheap, so that's now that we've gotten to this pick, I feel like I can explain my draft thought process. That's really how this team was meant to be. It's kind of a clone of the OU sand teams that are really powerful. They just don't care about your offensive mons. It's really just Stoutland plus Lopunny is going to destroy all offense. Anyway, moving on. I'll make these last two quick. We took Benjamin, making a appearance again after being on our championship team in Season 2. I really wanted a steel type because dragon types and fairy types are broken, so I need some sort of resist for that. And this is really nice to have Bronzong because it is a ground resist. It is going to not appreciate Excadrill as a Pokemon since it can break through the mold. But the nice thing is that we took the other mold breaker Pokemon that's very common, or one of the other ones. Like also, Kyurem Black is very popular with a mold breaker type ability. But at least we took 1 out of 3, so that makes Bronzong that much stronger. It can't really be sniped as easily by a unsuspecting mold breaker Pokemon. It is, giving us a little bit of a psychic weakness, as I mentioned, but we have other ways to deal with that, I think. Or not psychic weakness, it's giving us a little bit of a dark weakness. But we should be okay. I'm not worried about it. Bronzong is really nice for rocks. That's another reason why I wanted it. The only other rocker that I had up to this point was Hippowdon. I guess it was a bold strategy to wait this long to get a rocker in general, but I knew that I could get Hippowdon late, and I was really banking on a tier 4 steel type. Like I had my eye on Registeel. If Bronzong had gotten sniped, I would have taken Aggron. And people say that Bronzong is setup fodder, and it certainly can be true. But I mean, it gets good coverage. Like it gets Earthquake, it gets Grass Knot, Gyro Ball, Heavy Slam. It gets a Rock Slide. It gets Rock Polish. That's hilarious. What does this thing hit if you have a Jolly Nature? It hits 181, folks. That's not even enough to outspeed like a non-invested 80 speed Pokemon. But if you do go for the Rock Polish, you're going to be outspeeding Starmie and Raikou. Okay, so you're going to hit 362 speed, and they only hit 361. So there you go. That's a clutch strategy right there. It gets Calm Mind. It doesn't get bad moves, so you just have to be very careful with what you do with this Pokemon. Otherwise, yeah, it can be fodder. It gets Trick. Maybe you make it like a Choice Band or Choice Specs Bronzong or something, and you could really catch somebody off guard. So anyway, that's Bronzong. And last but not least, we have the return of Buddy, the Stoutland. This thing is a monster. I don't know. I mean, obviously it's not in a highly used tier in Smogon, so that's why it's ranked as low as it is in Counter League. But this thing is powerful. It has 3 very viable abilities: Intimidate, Sandrush, and Scrappy. You can give it a Life Orb. You can give it a Choice Band. You can give it, probably not a Choice Scarf. You probably might not need that. Give it Lumberry or something. And then just, whether you're up in the sand or not, you bring this thing in and you obliterate something. Has a very strong return, coming off a base 110 attack stat. It's not as strong as something like Excadrill in the sand, but all you need to do is just whittle the team a little bit and then take advantage of your amazing coverage. Crunch, Fire Fang, Ice Fang, Iron Head, Play Rough. It even gets Pursuit. Like, if this is not a good enough Pursuit Trapper for me, I could just bring Buddy, and I can trap those psychic types for Lopunny, and it'll really catch them off guard. Superpower, it's amazing. Hit the steel types that are otherwise going to be preventing you from sweeping. Wild Charge, it's really nice. And it gets really nice defensive moves as well. Thunder Wave, Toxic. There's lots that this thing can do besides just sweeping the sand. That is what most people are going to expect. That's probably what I'm going to use it for. At least half the time that I use it, if not more. But just know that it does have the ability to be a defensive Pokemon with some pretty nice bulk, like base 90 defense. That's really good, And you slap a Choice Band on this thing, give it Scrappy. If they don't have a Steel type on their team, like what's to stop Stoutland from sweeping? Like honestly. So anyway, I think this video still ended up being pretty long, but I'm glad that I was able to record it, and I hope that you guys are as excited for this season as I am. Expectations are very high after taking the championship last season, but I think we have the tools at our disposal in order to make a run at a repeat. That's not a guarantee. It's squarely in the category of hopeful, but you heard it here first. This team is going to be a top-tier threat this entire season, all 13 weeks, going up to the playoffs. So we are no longer the underdog. We're no longer being overlooked, but I'm still confident that we're going to be able to put up some great numbers this season, get a good record. Low Plenty is going to be amazing. Stylin's going to be amazing. Everyone on our team is amazing, and I love that I have a team where I can bring all 11 Mons on any given day. I mean, obviously not at the same time, but you know what I mean. Like, sometimes you draft a Pokemon, you're like, oh, I'm going to bring this once or twice this season. But every Pokemon I feel like I could bring to any game. And that's one of the best indicators of having a good draft. So anyway, want to thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to check back for more Pokemon content. And until the next time, I will see you all later.